Hey, this episode of Finding Nemo Surf Fishing is being brought to you by the Kids Can Fish Foundation. You guys know I love them. I mean, I went to the tournament. I just got back. It's been really good. So, the Kids Can Fish Foundation, you can find the website kidscanfish.net. They take kids out into these camps and teach them everything they can about throwing cast nets, fishing, all, let's see here, freshwater, saltwater, and there's more coming. But the cool part is that they take all the donations that come in, and when they put these camps on, these kids go home with the gear. So it's not just learn and leave. No, they learn with that gear. They take that gear home, and then they get to take it back out another time on their own. Lots of great things. All your donations come back, or that do go in, go right back into it. And then at the big tournament at the end of the year, all the money that comes for that, all the proceeds go right back in as well. So they have the nice splits that come with the payouts. Lots of cool stuff on there. So go to kidscanfish.net. Take a look at all the information that they have on there. And if you can, hey, take care of them, support them. They're doing good things. Welcome to a new week, everybody, and it's been a good one. I hope you're doing well wherever you are, and I hope the fishing has been phenomenal, because that's always the greatest thing you can hope for at the end of the week is coming home with a smile and I get some food on the stove. This week, we're taking the old digital plane out west. We're going back to Cali, and we're going into a different topic this time. We're going to the one that everybody's like, ooh, controversy. Well, if you recognize that label right there, yeah. We're talking with Spencer from Terra Firma. It's going to be pretty cool. So I hope y'all are ready. Get your notepads out, because there's going to be a lot of discussions here between the shark fishing, regular fishing, Cali fishing, the tackle shop. There's a lot. So this is going to be a big one. So without further ado, welcome to the show. Good to have you on, man. I'm glad you're here.
No, man, good to be here. It's always fun to do these things.
So if you're watching this on the video, yes, he's in his truck, because that's the only spot that the truck's getting there, that you got a signal out there, because like you said, the shop is a black hole of doom.
Yeah, it's got to be just the miles and miles of cable that's in there or something. I used to get okay service when I was with AT&T, but I moved over to Verizon so I'd have better service on the road, because like 90% of my life now is not in the shop. And it really, it's a black hole at the house. Like, I'll be trying to call and just talk like little business things with vendors and stuff, and I have to go outside, get in the truck, drive to the end of the street to even get service. So.
Oh, that's not even fair. Oh, man. Well, you're in SoCal, so you've got some pretty cool fishing. You do have limited fishing zones, unfortunately. I do remember some of that. We were talking pre-show with where you're at. So yeah, you got to fight for some real estate there.
Yeah, so the MPAs is one thing, and then we can't really night fish in most of SoCal. The beaches they're all city or state or county owned, and they all have different closure times. They close at night. Some of that's just public safety stuff. We have a lot more people here, so if the beach was open till 10, it would literally be full of people all day, every day, and it's hard to maintain it. I get it, but at the same time, it's a little frustrating. It makes you you have to think and stick and move, and there's no multi-day sessions here, and so things are different. But
what's life without an extra challenge? Here's another one, right? Just can't make it simple. All right, well, let's get right into podcast questions here, because we do have a lot of them. We got a lot of things to talk about. So let's start at the very beginning. Tell us your story and what got you into fishing.
Oh, man. So I guess I was born into it. My dad, now deceased, was a big time like long range style boat. Out here we have like these big boats that everybody gets on and goes fishing together. There's 100 passengers or something, and they'll go a couple hundred miles offshore and they'll fish offshore and come back. It's like a head boat, but it's way more like distance focused. And he grew up doing that and was big into that. And he got into diesel mechanics and ran boats and commercial fishing. And so when we were estranged until I was like 16, and we got back together, I had been fishing on my own, just like in like ponds and lakes. I grew up on the East Coast, so like Maryland area. So I spent some time over there, like just freshwater fishing and stuff. Came out here, and he kind of quickly like crash coursed me into this unique fishery we have here with that headboat stuff. And so that's really where I cut my teeth, was offshore multi-angler fishing. Very strange environment, and it quickly didn't do it for me. I wanted to be the guy fishing, and to me, the guy fishing was the guy driving the boat. Anybody can throw bait at a boiling fish and get bit, and that wasn't it wasn't really fishing to me. And no offense to the head boat guys out here, if that's what you got, that's what you got. But I wanted to go do it. I wanted to find fish, so I quickly got into like buying boats and trying to make it work on a limited budget, and that was frustrating. And the fish were small. I want big fish, and so that took me eventually to the land-based shark fishing thing. And it also, and it was off to the races from there. You know, I traveled a lot for work as a younger adult. I did a lot of like science research in various places, spent time in Hawaii, spent time overseas, and learned interesting tactics there. And so when I came back to the US and finally decided it was time to get serious about making some money, I started to bring some of those tactics and habits and ways of fishing from across the world to North America, and it like took off, and couldn't be happier.
It's crazy, man. I mean, you're not the first person to tell me this, and I love it when people bring it up. I mean, fishing's fishing. And there's some cool differences you can pick up from different parts of the world. It is insane.
Oh yeah, it's a huge driving force behind the travel. Like it's the number one biggest reason we do that is marketing, putting the tackle to test in different things. And then also it's something I've wanted to do my whole life. I have like, one of the questions you had sent me was bucket list fish, all of them. I want all of them. And so the only way I can do that is to go to places. But the other thing I really, really enjoy is learning new fisheries. And that's like a huge thing for me. And what land-based fishing allows me to do is learn that without the help of a guide. You know, like if you go if you say you wanted to go catch marlin in Costa Rica, you're going to have to go on a boat with somebody. He knows how to fish. You're not necessarily doing the fishing. Land-based fishing, I can go pattern a place, apply what I know, learn something new from that area, and I did the fishing. And to me, that's huge. That's a big difference. And that's why I'm married to the land-based game. Like, that's just the way it is. I got to do it, man. I got to have my hands on it. I got to figure it out.
But it works out great because all that stuff even goes into your tackle. It goes down to the customer, and it's all time tested, proven, and that's just an extra win for everybody. So yeah, that's good. You already knocked the bucket list fish, so we're just gonna go ahead and we'll leave that one alone. What's your favorite thing about fishing?
The learning that it seems like no matter what, you're never done. It seems like you're always learning. There's something new every time. Every session presents new problems, presents new solutions, and drives you to think and perform better next time. And as soon as you think you got something figured out, you don't. It changes. And that part, that's what keeps me doing it. If it was easy every time, if I went and caught fish every time, I wouldn't do it anymore. I'd get bored. And so the blanking sessions are almost as valuable to me as the catching sessions. They just really are, because those are where you're learning. If you're catching fish, you're just reaffirming what you already know. If you're blanking, you get to thinking and you get frustrated and it gets in your brain and it sticks and you got to figure it out. And that's the part I like the most, I guess, is failure.
But dude, I mean, oh, man, how many people are so scared of failing? And it's like in fishing, that's like 3/4 of what we do. You're not going to catch every time. And if you are, I hope you're a lottery ticket holder. Like, you've got super skill luck. But,
or you're fishing a fishery that's like that, you know, like if you go largemouth bass fishing, you're probably going to catch largemouth bass. Like, it's just the way it is. But yeah, it not to take away from the fact that it can be frustrating. Like, we've gone halfway around the world before and missed, and that hurts. But it keeps you get to do it again. You just think on the upside of it. That's all you can do. And you're learning and you're getting better. And then when it actually happens, it matters more. If every time you went, you did it, it wouldn't be cool, man. Like, that's.
Well, you've done a lot of world travel, like you said. Is there anywhere that's a dream place for you to go that you haven't been, or a place that you'd be like, oh, I totally have to go back here?
So more like a nightmare. Maine is my like nightmare right now. I'm on like 5 or 6 sessions, multi-day sessions, trying to crack the last species I need for the IGFA Royal Slam for sharks entirely from shore. Port Beagle shark, I'm on like my 6th shot in Maine, and I still haven't done it. I was going to go this year for like 30 days and just grind it out, but the sea state this year has been unpredictable. So I would have wound up sitting on my hands for 28 to 30 days, and so I wound up not going. But we'll get back to it next year. That's my nightmare. That's the thing that's been like holding on to me. I've got trips slated for. I got Guyana in March. I got Europe again in a week. I've got some Pacific Island stuff I'm really excited to break some ground on in December. I don't keep a lot of bucket list stuff because as soon as I can, I do it. As soon as the opportunity presents itself, we go. And we're kind of being systematic about it and kind of cutting across continents at a time, right? So North America's all but done. Got a couple of things here left that we need to do. And then we're almost done with Europe. This next Europe session might make it so that we only need like 1 or 2 more big species from Western Europe, and then we're done there.
Nice.
And then South America, that Guyana trip, I say Guyana, but it's really going to wind up being Guyana, Brazil, Argentina, maybe Peru. And that'll pretty much put a nail in that one too. So we're just gradually working our way across the world and figuring stuff out. And stuff always pops up, little wingers and things, but we try and do these big, long staged expeditions a couple of times a year. And it really, really drive it home and get it all done in one session. But
Oh man, I'm already excited to hear the winding on this. I can't wait for the beginning of the new year to be like, all right, where to go? Did you get it?
yeah.
Well, we'll get this last one and then we'll move into the fishing tips, tricks, and knowledge here. Can you share a memorable surf fishing story, including unexpected catches or challenging fishing situations that just turned into, holy crap, that was cool?
Yeah, I actually somebody just asked me something very similar. They said, where was a moment when you knew you had screwed up? And it reminded me of the time that Matthew and I, every summer, we do this trip where we go to an island 30 miles off the coast and we post up for like 5 days and we pelagic fish. And the goal is to catch mako sharks. And we always catch mako sharks, but the goal is to catch a mako shark, like the mako shark, right? And we finally got our chance a couple of years ago. We hooked up, or we ran out an 80 wide, a big reel, big bait, got it set, turned around. As soon as I got back to the beach, one of those headboats came by within like 20 yards of the beach and cut us off clean right at the rod tip, basically. And so I was disheartened. I had a backup reel. So I lost all the line from that drop. So that reel was out for the trip for the next 4 days or whatever. I had a smaller backup reel at a little 50. So I grabbed that, put it in the rod holder, ran out a similar bait, similar rig and everything. And they're short drops, just like 300 yards. Got that set. And by literally like the bow of the kayak hit the beach and that rod was on. And we don't get a lot of screaming runs on the West Coast. We get a lot of slack bites and stuff like that. But this fish just bent the rod, got it in gear, got in the harness. That fish didn't stop. There's 750 yards of line on my 15 arrow. That fish didn't stop until there were 10 wraps of line left on the spool.
Oh no.
Probably 5 minutes of just not fast, just steady, see you later, bye. We finally got it turned, got it all the way back, got everything but like 11 cranks left. Like we were 3 cranks from seeing the fish, and how it goes, we got tangled in the cutoff from earlier that day.
No.
And so gradually that braid pinched off my mono top shot, left me a little like pinched off turd end on my mono, and fish of a lifetime gone. And that was there's only 2 things it could have been right out here. There's only 2 things that'll do that: a smooth hammerhead, which we haven't done, or the mako shark. And either one of those would have made like the year, maybe the next 10 years, and we lost it right there at the beach. And so we stood around and like waited, like see if we could see it pop up, or I could get the float back or something, and like re-rig. Off it went. So fish is out there swimming around with a big old TFT float on his face.
Oh no, that is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Oh, so after that, just go home and lick the wounds or send another one out?
We wound up catching a couple of makos that trip, but nothing over 40 pounds. We have a lot of pup makos here. That's one of the big obstacles to catching a big one in California, is that we just have such a robust population of juvenile. We're a nursery. So we have such a robust population of 10-pound mako sharks that every bait you put out, it's like piranhas, it's like a mako chow. They find it and they get hooked, and you reel in. Sometimes you reel them in the next morning thinking you weren't bit, and there's a 10-pound mako on you, and that happens all the time. But yeah, we wound up with a couple of makos. I think we got a good 6 scale. It was a good trip, but that fish, that's the fish we've been looking for 8 years. That was.
Yep, of course it was. Oh, I'm so sorry. That's heartbreaking. Like, if anybody listened to this, I know you're just like, you all felt it. I think everybody that's listening to this felt that. No.
We said a word to each other for like 10 hours after that. We just like went robot mode, just got everything back out, sat down. Whoops.
There's nothing to say. There's. Oh, jeez.
Yep.
Oh, okay. So let's move into the knowledge type part of this, and then after that, we're gonna rock into the tackle. How do you plan your fishing trips out there?
So one of the things I say about that is that like 90% of the fishing happens before you get to the beach. So when we're looking at spots, scouting spots, trying to find new spots, or even looking at old spots, we're looking 12 days out. Pay for a good surf forecaster. That's my number one advice I can give. Pay for like Surfline Premium or Windfinder Premium, something that's reliable for your area. They all have different strong points. Out here, I like Surfline. And look way in advance. Look like 12 days in advance. And not just because that surf finder tells you what the sea conditions are going to be, but it also gives you tides, weather, wind. All of those things are important. And look at your successes and look at the windows where you had success and match that as best you can the next session. If you're trying to maximize time, I mean, if you just have weekends to fish, then go fish weekends. But if you can pick times to go, that's the biggest thing. So a lot of that is just picking windows, deciding when to go. When I got guys coming out here to fish, I tell them to give me 7 days because I'll probably find 3 days we can find fish on. The other 4, we're not going to, I mean, we'll go fish, we'll go through the motions, but the bites are going to be when they're going to be, and that's kind of the way it is. And it's like that all over the world. The other thing I look for, pay attention to tides, huge thing. Some areas will bite good on a moving tide. Other areas will only bite on a slack tide. I'm big on a slack tide bite window here myself. Like that's probably 75% of my fish come on the dead slack. Like literally when it says low, that's when low tide 709, that fish is getting hooked at 708. Like that's something that we know out here. We apply it other places and it worked with some reliability. Now that's 70% of them, right? So 30% of the time you'll fluke a fish. So there's reason to be there for longer than an hour. But if you're trying to be surgical, I used to say that you could do 4 hours of fishing here and have as much luck as somebody who fished there for 24. Yeah, knowing your area, that's a huge thing. Patterning down. Nothing's an accident in fishing. All of it is patterning it down and just collect data. Look at what other people are doing and having success. Take that stuff with a grain of salt. Not everybody's going to tell you the real story, but like when you know the information's good, lean on it. That's no man's an island. You got to put it all together, and planning is all of it. That's the best advice I can give you. Done. Getting down to the sand and what rig you tie and what knot you put on, all of that doesn't matter if your planning's wrong.
Excellent advice. And that's not just sharking, that's all the way across the board.
That's
so well put.
Yeah.
So with your set, because you do have limited, but you have gone a lot of places, how do you choose a spot to fish?
So that's the other one. The other thing to pay for, and you don't need to pay for it, you can get them for free, but a good GPS, like mapping, chart plotting, program system app, something like that. I use a free one a lot when I'm on the road because I don't have the software on my PC, but it's called GPS Nautical Charts. It's literally what, like, you Google it, it'll be the first thing that pops up. And they have regional maps and charts for pretty much the whole planet. You got to kind of know what, like, major city or port is near where you're looking because they're going to be more detailed where there's boats. But, yeah, I use those so much. When I was working at the university, I would be sitting there in my office with charts open all the time. People thought I was a geography major, not a science ed major, because any spare moment I had, I'm looking at charts and maps and trying to find places. And what you're looking for isn't, you're not looking for a feature, right? You're not looking for, oh, this is the spot the fish are going to be. You're looking for differences, right? So if the whole coast is 11 feet deep and then there's a spot where suddenly it's 40 feet deep, I would look there. Navarre Beach is a prime example, right? So the entirety of Santa Rosa Island's like 23 feet deep from freaking Alabama to Navarre. And then suddenly in Navarre at 400 yards, you've got an 80-foot shelf. It's no accident that there's blackfin tuna, sailfish, makos, and Navarre. It's literally, it says so on the map. It says they're going to be, it may as well say fish for shark here.
Yeah.
Like it's that simple. Differences. So the study of like what the bottom is doing in oceanography is called bathymetry. And so what I say is look for places that are bathymetrically interesting. If it's all the same everywhere, it's going to be interesting to the fish to have even a little high spot. If you're fishing Pensacola Bay, the whole thing's more or less carved out to 20 feet or whatever it is, and then there's a little high spot that comes up to 15. It's only 5 feet of relief. But if you're a 12-inch pompano, 5 feet's a cliff, man. That's a whole sheltering place to be, And then those charts will also tell you what the bottom's made out of, so you can be more surgical about how you fish, right? So it's like scattered rock or sand or shell. Those are all going to require different fishing applications and stuff. And so that'll give you like you're not fishing blind. You have it's not like you don't have like a picture of what you're looking at, but you can put together the pieces and kind of know how you're fishing and where you're fishing. And that makes a big difference.
Yeah, you're not giving out like holy crap information right here.
Yeah.
If none of you took notes right now, you better back it up and go ahead and start. Oh, it's so perfect on so many levels. Okay, well, we've been going for 20, so you get a breather for a second because we're gonna knock out a bait check. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. Man, you're just crushing it here. It's so good. Oh, all right. Well, this bait check is being brought to you by the Sinker Guy. Head on over to thesinkerguy.com and take a look at everything that Chip's got going on in the Sinker Guy garage. Need Sputnik sinkers? Yeah, he's got them. It's in his name. He's got you hooked up there. Maybe you need to get your hands on some, I don't know, rigs, beads, floats, scissors, tools. Yeah, he's got it all. Lots of good stuff over there. So go take a look at the website, thesinkerguy.com. Get your order in real quick. Great customer service and a great dude all around. Really, really good times. Okay, so like my train just got derailed because I'm like, yeah, I know exactly the spot you're talking about with that depression. I've may or may not have been looking at charts not too long ago, wondering that thing after. Actually, I think it might have been Dylan. Yeah, I think it was Dylan from Coastal Worldwide. He brought it up not too long ago on another show I'm on the Panhandle Fishing Report, and he was talking about, yeah, you should look at this. Look how the water does this. Look at the currents. Look at the flow. And I was like, weird. And I started lightly doing it. But yeah, you kind of reaffirmed that. And I was always like, why do you think?
Yeah. I mean, it's no secret. Like, places aren't magic, right? Places hold fish for reasons. And so, like, a good example out here is there's a harbor out here which will remain unnamed because I'm not done with it. But there's a harbor out here that's historically been like a magical place that has pelagic fish in the winter, and like there's stuff going on there all the time. And it used to get blamed on a power plant, and then the power plant stopped working like 40 years ago and still got magical fish in there.
I know where you
it's
are.
Not the fucking power plant. It's the whole harbor's built on a canyon head. It's a magical place because it is like it's literally got all of the stuff. It's got upwelling and bathymetrically interesting features, and it's consistent, and it has a consistent protected break, and it's just got all of the it just ticks all the boxes. And it's not an accident. It's never an accident, and it's never anthropomorphic thing. It's never something that we did. It's almost never. It's never. Oh, there was a power plant. The power plant was built there because of the cool water upwelling that made it work right. Like it's not an accident, and it's never because we did something.
How dare you have common sense, sir? How dare you?
Fish are like billions of years old, and we're like 100 years old. Like we didn't make them do that.
No, not even a little. Oh. All right. So you brought up, actually, I don't even need to do this now. You kind of just nailed it. I was going to ask, how can surf anglers read and interpret the beach conditions to identify productive fishing spots and locate schools of fish? You kind of killed that. So yeah, well played on there. All right. So now let's talk about gear setup. So you have, like you started with, you were only going out at 300 yards there with that drop. And you do a lot of varying differences because of things that things that you've seen on the maps. What are you looking for to get your first drop out, and how do you kind of stagger your distances with that?
Okay, so I'm going to make some people grumpy here, but the farthest you ever need to kayak a bait in land-based shark fishing is 350 yards. And when I measure yards, I do it by paddle strokes. I consider 350 paddle strokes to be 350 yards. And no, it's not accurate. It's going to be different every time. But consistency is far more important than where the bait is put. If you have to drop further than 350 yards to hit your mark, you're either fishing in a bad place and you need to move somewhere where you have access to that, or you're fishing a very specific thing and none of you are. Like we've had to drop 680 yards to hit a spot where it drops to 600 feet in some island in Alaska, 110 miles from civilization. That's not where you're fishing. That's not something you have to do. If you're trying to be consistent, pick a spot where you get good water at 350 yards. Good water or good bottom or good structure or good bait presence, something like that. So the farthest rod goes 350 yards every time, never further. You're just hurting yourself, and you're increasing fight time. The further away you have to reel that fish in from, the more time that fish is on the line, the less ethical that is. So 350 yards, that's what I consider like effective fishing range. You can push it if you're in Texas and the closest bar break you have is at 400 yards, then yeah, you might have to go 450, 475. But 350 is like a healthy, like that's where I want to be fishing at my farthest stick. And then after that, I go 100 less every reel. So if I'm dropping 3 reels, I'll go one at 350, one at 250, one at 150. That 150 reel will usually have a small bait on it or a couple of baits on it. Maybe like it's a double dropper with like a mullet head. And so it's a bait catching rod. You know, you're not hoping to catch Moby Dick on your 15 arrow that you put at 125 yards, but you never know. Stuff happens. But typically I'll only run 2 reels. Another thing I do differently than a lot of sharkers, I don't run a lot of rods. I feel like I can be more effective with less baits, you know, in the right places, and then there's less to go wrong. I don't fish big teams. I fish groups of 2 or 3 guys, and so 2 rods a person's already 4 rods. If we get a double hookup, we're already kind of messed up. So I keep it simple. I keep my baits in the right places, and yeah, like 350 yards is as far as you want to go. And there are definitely places where that is not where I need to put a bait. Like sometimes I got beaches here where it's 150 strokes, man. Put that bait at 150 strokes, get it right on the other side of that bar break, and we are in it to win it. And that's ideal. You want to be fishing as close a range as you can possibly fish. You don't want to be bombing baits. And if the fish are running further off the beach, you're not in the right place. You want to be somewhere. You want to give that fish you want to be fishing in a place where that fish has a reason to come close to the beach. That's the name of the game. You're not you don't want to take the bait to the fish. You want the bait to be where the fish is going to be, like, fish where they live, man.
I mean, well, the other piece too, even with sharking and I guess regular fishing, you mentioned a couple of pieces that people that should key in on. I mean, structure change, depth change, something different. You know, you're going to find them. You just got to know where those places are. And like you said, planning kind of makes a big difference with that. You can't go in blind. I mean, blind squirrels catching nuts, sure, but hey, it'd be better to be tactical.
Correct. And that's just, we like to fish surgically. That's just something we've done and something we've promoted people doing. Honestly, when I see pictures of like 2 guys fishing and 6 rods out, I just get the heebie-jeebies. And I feel like that's where some of the like negativity comes from the public perception of sharking, is like you get 2 guys on the beach, there's like 12 80 wides out, there's bait everywhere, it's a messy camp. It's really hard to maintain 6 rods effectively. I mean, I'd rather fish 2 rods really well, know they have good baits all the times. Instead of kayaking 6 times to set 6 individual baits, I can kayak 6 times to freshen my 2 good baits 3 times. That makes me a better, more surgical fisherman. That means I'm presenting better offerings for less effort more frequently.
It's a great way to look at it, though. I mean, but with time effective and all that, because like you said, you don't get a lot of time on nighttime out there. You have to be really technical and surgical with that. But even around the world still, too. I mean, energy management is still energy management.
Yeah, if I'm living on some island in North Africa for 5 days, I'm not getting in a kayak every bait check 6 times for 6 rods. That's not happening. You're lucky if I'm running 1, man.
Well, these next 2 questions, we're going to go into the darkness side. And I know, like you said, Cali's a little bit different, but you've definitely done it other places. So let's talk about the moon. How do tides and moon phases influence surf fishing and sharking? And what do you feel are the best times based on that factor to kind of play with?
I'm going to make more people mad, and I'm going to straight up say that if you're not tiger fishing, the moon doesn't matter. I have never in 10 years, 11 years of paying attention, and I've fished for longer than that, but I've been paying attention to this stuff for probably about that long, noticed any correlation between the moon and the bite.
Oh, okay.
Now, there are guys I fish with a lot that I really respect their opinions, and they think it does matter. And my argument back at them is because you fish for tiger sharks. If you're fishing for tiger sharks, it seems to matter, but I don't think the tiger shark cares about the moon. I think the tiger shark's primary food source in the windows that you're fishing care about the moon, and that's sea turtles. Turtles on the highest tides and the lowest tides of the year to protect their nests. Those happen to be on the new moons and the full moons, and therefore you have this conflating variable where, yeah, tiger sharks bite better on these moon phases, but I don't think it's because of the moon. And I think that fish is also probably still there on the day before and the day after that, but that they just like know to be looking for chow when it's turtle time. And that's what I think about that, because I haven't found a connection to it for other things. Now, certain game fish species, I've definitely, like trout species, corvina, weakfish, speckled trout. There's definitely, if you're fishing at night, there's definitely a moon thing with that. And then on the East Coast and out here now, striped bass, there's a moon thing with that. But it's not like, it's not definitely not the largest factor. We've definitely caught them on days like when we go light game fishing, it's because we're not going sharking, so it's like a not great day, and we still catch it. We don't really look at the conditions and stuff when we do that a lot of the times, because we're just trying to get out of that. It's clearly not the best window. We just have 4 hours tonight. Let's go throw lures at the bay, and we catch fish. So like, and sometimes a lot of fish. So it definitely is a factor in light game fishing, but I don't think it's as big a factor as people put on it. It's like astrology to me. The moon phase thing in fishing is like astrology in regular life. Like it is definitely like you can't argue with the way gravity works and the way tides work, but I don't think it makes as big a deal as it's a scapegoat for, oh, we didn't catch them tonight because it was a full moon. I've heard that so many times from sharkers. And then like my PB tiger was caught on a full moon and a lunar eclipse, so it can't possibly be that.
Really? You're gonna get both sides of the coin for one shot?
Yeah.
Oh no, that's so funny.
Like literally, like I can't write this shit. That actually happened.
Oh my god, that's so funny. Oh, okay. I'm gonna stick with this because I'm gonna get myself in trouble. All right, so you are a tackle shop. Obviously, you do sharking. You do, like you said, light rig, all that fun stuff. What type of rigs do you like to use when you're doing sharking? And then let's throw in there surf fishing for light fish if you're just doing set rigs and hanging.
Yeah. So for sharking, it for 99.9% of the fishing is a rig with a 20-aught hook, 12 feet of cable, and 30 feet of mono. And you can play with poundage and just stuff on that, but for the most part, we like 800 cable. Rarely do we meet a fish that doesn't need that, and the one exception, you'll notice a theme here, the one exception in this is tiger fishing. In tiger fishing, I will like to run single strand, and that's not because I've had tigers get through cable, but I have had tigers get through single, and so that means that they can probably get through cable. So that's one of those things. But other than that, yeah, 600-pound mono. There's a lot of emphasis these days lately on this like 800-pound mono, 1,200-pound mono, because it doesn't hurt you when you leader the fish. If you're taking wraps, generally speaking, you shouldn't be taking wraps of your leader in general. And I know it's an easy thing to do. It lets you get a hold of the fish and pull, but it's also a huge safety concern. That's a really good way to lose your footing. You're wrapped up, you go to ungo, and that wrap is touching the other wrap. It's going to bind, and then you're going swimming. What I prefer to do is take a grip like this. Mono's running through my closed fingers and on either side, and I can apply pressure, and that lets me hold almost as strong as a wrap, and I can let go and slip. There's no wrapping around my body. I'm not connected to the fish. We like 600-pound mono for that. Our production rigs are 600 mono. We do offer a couple of rig options with 800. I don't like 1,200. I think it's wiry and unfishable, so we don't offer any rigs with 1,200. For just fishability reasons. It's just, I don't see an advantage. And then the cable is good for 99.999% of the fishing, unless you're going tiger fishing and you're specifically going tiger. You'll definitely land tigers on cable. For the customers land tigers on cable. I've landed tigers on cable. But if you think you're going to catch the tiger, I'd run single. And we offer a rig for that. We call it the Panhandle Special. It used to be the Dylan's previous business name Special, but we had to drop that with everything changing.
Yeah, a little change in that. A little curveball. Well, you mentioned something too, and I know this isn't in the questions, and I saw this, and don't worry, we're not going to dig into this topic. You guys get a lot of accidental great whites out there too. I mean, they just love sneaking in SoCal. They're not out there getting crazy after it. It's just an accidental bycatch. And I know you guys are really quick. I read the article that you had you'd contributed to about it. Like, people were going nuts and really just coming after you guys. And I thought what you wrote was really well said. Like, hey, look, we're not out here targeting these things. We're not out, there's a couple people that did some stupid stuff. That's not us. But with all that gear, I mean, that's a powerful fish. That's a strong one. Tigers are obviously, bigger than what you're going after on that one. But in those situations with that, is there any real differential for avoidance, I guess, is the best thing to say for out there with that?
It's
a tough one.
You can do things to make them less likely. When we go thresher fishing these days, which is rare, and so the thresher story, we decided to land-based thresher fish one season just to get it done. We wanted one from the beach proper, not from the pier. We love our pier customers. It's like used to be, it still is, but it's a smaller percentage than it used to be. But that was like what we started selling to, was these pier guys. And so we were fishing with them and doing that. And I was like, I wonder if we could just do this from the beach. And one of the catalysts was I didn't like gaffing these little baby fish, and I didn't like netting these little baby fish. And threshers have a huge post-release mortality rate. It probably rivals that of the hammerhead. So I didn't like messing with them on the pier and then trying to release them. And we were so effective at it, lethally effective at it, that in one season we caught like 18 of them. I caught 18 of them myself. And I was like, what am I going to do with 18 40-pound thresher sharks? Like, this isn't ethical. I shouldn't be fishing this way. So we decided to move to the beach, and we did it for 1 year. And what we did to keep the white sharks off, because one of the things, you have to day fish for thresher sharks. They will not eat a bait in the night. You're fishing mornings, like sunrise to like noon, and the beach is too crowded to get the hell out. But even then, even between 6 and noon, you catch a white shark on some populated, sandy, nice, comfortable beach where the threshers live. It's news. So how we did it, we didn't catch a single white shark that season fishing for threshers. And why we didn't catch a single white shark is we ran, normally our float rig bite sections are 12 feet of cable. We dropped down to 1.5 feet of cable and then 12 feet of 130 fluoro. And so when the 1.5 feet is like not even half of the smile of even a baby white shark. So that fish would come in and eat the bait and immediately clip our bait off. And so we didn't have to bring one of those fish to the beach that way. Now, that's not necessarily the most ethical solution either, because now you fed that fish 2 hooks. So there's that, but it did prevent us from putting them on the beach. Realistically, if you're sharking in California, you're going to encounter white sharks. Even if you deliberately fish places where there aren't white sharks, you're going to catch white sharks. And it really does suck. And it's why we don't fish as much at home anymore. We get people to come out here a couple of times a year, other influencers, buddies, people that have helped us figure stuff out overseas. I got a guy coming next week. We go out, and that's literally like the first thing that happens is we catch a white shark. There's nothing we can fucking do about it. It just happens. It's the first thing that happens is we catch a white shark every time. And they're always excited and stoked, and that's great. But then I have to do okay, we got to pack up and go home now, because the current regulations in California are that if you know there's a white shark, you have to go away. You can't fish there for 36 hours. So it's in the angler's best interest to not catch those fish. And yes, there are guys out here that are making a point of catching those fish because it's huge. And social media loves it. Everybody loves it. It's a good way to make money. It's a good way to grow some followers. It's not the right way to do any of that. And they release really well. It's really hard to hurt one. There's nothing wrong with catching them as bycatch. Like, from an ethical standpoint, that fish is easy to handle. It's easy to release. They're really durable. But it is probably unethical to sit there and catch 4 in a night. Especially, it's not even unethical anymore. Now it's illegal. So that's a huge thing. It's one of the reasons we packed the gear up. And we packed the gear up here before that happened, right? So we stopped fishing mainland California about 2 years ago now, when a new group of guys started fishing here and making YouTube videos about it. And I saw the writing on the wall then, and that's when we put the gear away. It wasn't 6 months after they started doing that DFW passed the new laws that prohibited them from doing that. Those guys have since quit fishing like almost altogether, but there's a whole new group of people that grew up or came up through it watching their YouTube videos, and now it's out of control. So we kind of don't do that anymore.
It makes sense, man. I mean, but what you did was great because you found a deterrent. I mean, it's not the deterrent, but when I read it, it was like full on guns up coming after you guys. And it was like, look, we're not trying to do this. And it's trying to explain that to out West is a little bit of a challenge. So
yeah. And at the time, nobody was doing what we were doing, right? So that article, you're talking about the Hakai article with,
yeah.
So when that article came out, we were still pretty much the only guys on the beach, right? So there was maybe like one other group of guys, and they were our people, like that we were working with, that were on the beach, and so we had the whole spotlight on us. So in the wake of that article, in the aftermath of it, not that there was any, like, apparently we're made out of Teflon. There's nothing we can do. But so that article came out, rolled off the skin, and we went about our lives. But one of the things we decided to do, is one of the catalysts for doing the Thresher thing, was we wanted to show that, no, we're not white shark fishing. So how can we do this? So what we did is we went out, we caught 13 species of big game sharks from the beach on the West Coast in 1 year, to show that, nope, we're not fishing for white sharks. We're fishing for these other 13 large game species that exist here. Just because nobody's done it before doesn't mean it isn't here, right? And so we did that, and then unfortunately the community has not evolved quite as quickly, and they still just do the same thing we did then, and it's a problem. But
you did, in my opinion, and that doesn't count for much, I think you guys did the right thing. I mean, I really do. You were trying to educate and show them without making it in your face kind of ugly thing. So I think that you went above and beyond. But as we get way off topic here, sorry, but I really wanted to thank you on the recording here, because I thought what you did was really great for the sport, great for the species, and just great for all of us in general, because you were trying to help. But hey, you get to have a drink, because it's bait check time. It is the second bait check of the episode. Hope you caught a bunch of fish by now. Things are going really well for you, and you're probably listening to this back in the car because you got all these notes and you knew what you were doing, and you went out and you got everything, and you're like, oh, I'm good. I can just go home. This bait check is being brought to you by Ninja Tackle. NinjaTackleVA.com is a website where you can get your hands on the Ninja Tackle or Ninja Dagger series rods. You guys know I love them, from the 7-footer all the way up to the 12. There is a 13 now. Haven't tried it yet, but I'll let you know. I know, still not sure how I feel about a 13-footer yet, but it's going to be good because I know it's Ninja Tackle. If you need rigs, he's got you covered. Or if you're into firearm or firearm accessories, Ninja Tactical side. Lots of cool different pieces for accessories for your Glock. I believe there's some good stuff for SIGs, red dot sights, optics, lots of good stuff. NinjaTackleVA.com. Take a look. You're going to be good. It's going to be nice. All right, so now that we've hammered that piece all to hell, we're going into that. Let's talk a little bit more into let's talk about baits. So what are some effective bait and lure choices that you have found bring in different types of species and that has been successful for you?
So on the light game side of it, my personal lure box is about 6 lures. I keep about 4 of each. I keep and they're all one color, black and white. On dark days, you need a light color, and on light days, you need a dark color, and black and white covers both. I can carry one color and do both jobs. And a 1 ounce crocodile, a 3/4 ounce shallow dive and jerk bait that suspends, preferably. You can have floating ones, the spinning ones work better. And then I throw some stuff in there that nobody fishes. Blade baits are a huge one for me. So search bait, cover a lot of water with a blade bait. And then some kind of surface walking skitter pop, big thing on the East Coast. Not so big here, but our Corvina and our stripers will eat them here. But it's kind of a specialty lure. It's glass flat. Conditions are perfect. That one comes out. But for the most part, I'm throwing metals or jerks, something in a 1 to 3/4. When it comes to big game, I classify baits in categories, right? So dark meat, white meat, and red meat. So your dark meat baits, your shark and your stingray. And when I say shark, I don't mean sharks you're not supposed to use for bait. I mean legal bait shark, sharp nose, black tip, things like that. Don't get it twisted.
Well done.
Cow nose rays. Those are your dark meat baits, and those are really, really critical. Those are your long soak baits. If you set a slab of tipper out there, it's not getting touched for 36 hours until the fish eats it. I don't even check those baits. That's a forever bait. It's not the far bait, I'll put it in the middle somewhere, but that's a critical part of the spread. If I don't have a dark meat bait in the spread, I'm not fishing. Personally, I hate southern rays, and this is like a thing me and Dylan go back and forth on. All their charter fish are mostly caught on southern rays. I catch a ton of fish with southern rays. I just find them to be less effective than something else I could put on that hook. It's not that bait doesn't work. It's that I would rather have something else on that hook. Obviously, if there's no bait in camp, I'm putting a southern ray on. But I'm probably not yakking it very far, because as soon as you get another bait, I'm reeling it in and putting another bait on. And then your red meat baits, and those are my favorite. I do a lot of pelagics fishing and a lot of weird oddball fishing. So for me, fin baits are critical. And the reason that's critical is that everything eats a fin bait, right? So a dusky shark's going to eat fin bait, a tiger shark's going to eat a fin bait, a hammerhead will eat a fin bait. I'm not isolating myself. You know, those dark meat baits, you're mostly going to catch tigers, hammers, makos, whites, things like that are going to eat those. Your bottom dwelling sharks are big on those. The fin baits, everything. Lemons love a fin bait. Nurses love a fin bait. Makos love a fin bait. Stuff I haven't even caught yet loves fin baits. Fin bait's the bait. You know, nothing's going to turn down a juicy tuna head. It's just not going to happen. And so fin baits to me are a huge red meat baits, tuna, jack. Personally, my personal favorite is we have a lesser amberjack species over here called a yellowtail. We call them yellowtail. Everything here is a yellowtail. I don't know why we call them that. It's kind of dumb, but it's a jack that looks like an amberjack, but it's skinny, doesn't fight very hard, and has a yellowtail, so we call them yellowtail. Those are the best all over the world. I'll fly those everywhere. I flew them to Hawaii. I flew them to the Canary Islands. I flew them all over the place. Those are my – when somebody brings me a bag of yellowtail heads, I'm like permanently indebted because those are the baits. They're really durable. They last a long time. Amberjack does the same thing. It's really durable. It lasts a long time. It has really great pulling power. I think most of my PB Atlantic sharks have been on yellowtail head. My big hammer was on a yellowtail head. Just about everything. The mako we lost a couple of years ago, right after Dylan caught his, was on a yellowtail head. Everything loves yellowtail head. And then your white meat baits are like your local game fish, right? So like croakers, drum, corvina, anything that isn't a tuna when you cut it open, anything that's not red pelagic fish meat when you cut it open is a white meat bait. Pompano or a red meat bait. I'll put a pompano out, lickety split. That's an instant bite. That fish is going to eat that right away. I know humans like to eat them too, but we're here to fish, not eat. So I run pompano. But yeah, those are the three big classes for me. And if possible, I'll put one of every one out. I put less emphasis on the white meat baits, other than on casted. I like them on casted rigs because they're more durable than a soft red. Most red meat baits are pretty soft. You know, tuna meat isn't the most durable thing. A whiting is far more durable than like a strip of tuna. So I'll put them on the casted baits, and then I can like get a couple of casts out of them before I have to change them. Whereas if I was running like a bonito strip or something on a casted bait, I have to change that every time I casted it, every 20 seconds, however long it takes. Yeah, I don't like the kayak white meat baits super far. I know a lot of guys have luck with drum in the Gulf for like long soak baits on the shark rods, but I've just never found it necessary. I've never been that thirsty that I need to run like a less than optimum bait. I always try and have enough bait for every session. And that's a little game I play with myself when I'm packing for a trip, right? I'll be like, okay, I'm here for this many days. How many bait checks am I going to run that day? How many fish are we going to catch that day? And oftentimes what it comes down to is how many fish do I need to catch before I stop fishing, right? So like if I could pack 100 baits, ship 100 baits over there, but if we caught 40 fish, say we caught a fish on every other bait and we caught 40 fish, I'm pretty much done turning the handle by then. So I don't need that many baits, right? So I kind of think like how often, if I'm gone for 5 days, first day I'm probably going to run one bait because I'm tired of traveling. Second day I'll probably go hard. I'll change bait 3 times over the course of the day, every 8 hours or something. And then the next day I might do 8. So then I'll like do the math, how many rods, how many people, and figure out like the right number. I hate wasting bait. I hate throwing bait away. Yeah. I go through a lot of effort to get the good bait, and I hate throwing it away. But I also really never want to run out. I never want to open the cooler and be like, shit, the next bait's garbage. Like that's not the bait I want to run, but I'm going to run it because it's all I have. Then I'm not fishing effectively. I may as well go home. You know, I want to be maximizing my opportunities. And I never count on making bait when I get there. Never count on the surf bite being good because it's more inconsistent than the shark bite. So like if never go expecting to catch a drum or a pompano, because that's the guaranteed way to make sure you don't catch a drum or a pompano is to hope to catch a drum or a pompano.
It's just setting yourself up for failure. It's like, it'll work. Wait a minute. Crap, it's December. Crap, this isn't gonna work.
Yeah, you gotta be bringing bait. That's a huge thing.
Yeah, and a myriad of baits. So you nailed that, man. That's real good, real good. So like you said, you do a lot of travel here, and this is something that some people are lucky; they get to travel on their vacations, and they like to travel for fishing. What do you do when you go fishing in a new place?
Talk to people. Not on the internet even so much, just talk to people when you get there, walk the fish harbor. Everywhere you go, there's somewhere that is like designated like commercial area, right? And talk to those guys. They know what's up. The sport guys, got to remember, if you're looking for info, the sport guys are probably looking for info too. So the commercial guys, they have to catch fish. It's their job. And so you'll get a good idea of what's around just by looking at barrels of bait or whatever at the commercial docks. And then another huge thing is just talking to people, man. It's all networking. Like, so much of what the internet has made what I do possible, right? I could not, this job didn't exist 5 years ago. It didn't exist 4 years ago, really. You couldn't, there was no way to compile the amount of information that we have access to now with social media the way it is, the amount of fishing influencers and wannabe influencers, you know, people that are aspiring to be influencers. They're often more friendly with the content. And then also you can forge those relationships early. And then when they make it, you've made it with them. And it's like a part of the thing. Like, it's a huge, I make lots of friends, man. I'm everybody's friend. Try and be everybody's friend. If you can't get along with me, it's on you, man. I'm really easy. And so I just talk a lot, and I talk to a lot of people. I can't tell you how many trips have been inspired by somebody being like, hey, I have this thing. Do you want to catch this thing? And it's like, sure. And then that turns into a friend. The Dylan thing, I'm tiger cursed. I was really bad at tiger fishing until we just cheated and went to the place where the tigers live. That's how Dylan and mine's relationship started. He's good at tiger fishing. They're really good at tiger fishing. And he had a bite window and was like, yo, you need to come fish this. And I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's go fishing. And so we linked it up and we went fishing, and we grew together after that. You know, we learned a lot from him, and there's things I do today that he did that I would never have done before, like the rubber bands on the bait. I never did that.
Yeah.
With them, you know. And there's still times where I don't, and I'm still like on the fence about like what baits I do it on. They'll do it on every bait. I only do it on fin bait. So like I don't do it on ray or shark, but they do it on every bait and it works for them. I just have a different idea of how it's working and what it does. But yeah, that's something I learned from them. Another piece of the puzzle that I was able to pick up from them. And I'm sure they've learned things from me. I hope they have. And it's just, and there's other things. Like I recently fished with a YouTuber out of Houston that was big in gars, and we'd done some gar fishing before, and we'll do some gar fishing in the future, but we took him up and did some sturgeoning. And I feel like he learned a lot there, and I've watched his content since, and he's like been applying some of the stuff that we talked about when we were up there. And I had like 2 product ideas come out of that meeting that kind of birthed by things that he said that were like markets that existed, and they exist now because of that. And so like that's a huge thing. And that's like the big picture stuff, but like little things, like sometimes somebody will just say something that's like just enough to push it over the, like just an idea, and then you can try it out and apply it, and that's the thing, you know. But another side of that coin is learning when the information is not good, right? And so like sometimes somebody's like, yeah, man, I was injecting these herring with bait scent from Walmart and it was working great. That's a bad tip. That's just like, that really happened to me. That literally really happened to me while I was there.
Oh no.
You know what you got to do. And I was like, yeah, man, I'll give that a try. But like stuff like that, usually not so obvious and dramatic, but like sometimes people have a thing that works for them, an idea that works for them, and it's not necessarily the right answer. It works for some other reason because of this or that. But so you got to like weed through some of it and never hinge everything on Intel, but Intel's a huge part of it. You know, networking is massive.
Yeah.
No man's an island. I keep coming back to that. I feel like I've said that like 7 times on this show, but
it's true.
Literally, that's it. Like you're never going to if you're trying to do it all on your own, good luck. Even the stuff that we've done that doesn't exist before we did it, we needed help. Like we needed Intel. We needed a guy with a boat to help us get there. We needed a guy with a dead octopus that we could buy. You know, like we needed these things, and you can't do it without them. So
no, that's one thing I've loved about social media. I mean, granted, I'm not a YouTuber. I wish I was that cool. I'm never going to be that cool. This was my happy medium, but it's that we all work together. And if you can get to one person and teach them something and have them apply it, and it becomes, I don't want to say like the go-to method, but something that gets them that fish, that's a friggin' win. And then with all the social media networks, with the groups, with the good ones that you get them all together, man, we're just continuing the cycle. I mean, we're just making better anglers who's going to pass it on to the next person, and then our kids, and you know, it's just the continuous domino. It's huge. We have to try. You have to.
There are things that are common knowledge now that were taboo when I was learning, right? So one of the big things that comes to mind is when I was learning shark fishing, everybody said lever drags would never work on the beach. They're too finely machined. You can't get sand in the gears and you'll kill those fancy lever drags. and everybody wanted to fish star drag senators. Fast forward 6 years, 7 years, and now you're a pariah if you've got a senator on the beach. Like, it went all the other way around, you know, and like, and that was all because like people were seeing success. And the same thing happens with new products out. Like, I've worked with new brands and people have been like, oh, that's going to be trash because it's made overseas or this. And I'm like, no, I'm telling you, this is the stuff. I could use anything I wanted and I'm using this. And then fast forward 3 years and they're like leading the industry and blah, blah, blah. And like, it just happens that way. And the only way it happens is because people are seeing it work. You know, the things that work get repeated. And sometimes it's an uphill battle, circle hooks versus J hooks in Texas, things like that. But it is
the debate.
It will eventually, the truth will out, and the more effective tools will prevail, and it's just the way it is.
Dude, that's a way to pick a fight in a fishing group. Go into a surf fishing community, start talking J hook and circle hook. It's like, you know, you just want to light a fire and step back on a comment. Just bring up something about circle hook and J hooks, people. Don't worry, the comments will take care of themselves. People get real feisty when you go on. I saw that. I'm a moderator of a group, and I was like, okay, guys, chill the hell out. We're just talking hooks here, man. And it's not life or death.
The real answer is that there's appropriate settings for both. Like I own both kinds of hooks, right? There's moments where, especially in light game stuff, right? Like in shark fishing, it's pretty much got to be circle. I mean, legally in most places around the world, it's got to be circle hook. But as far as light game stuff goes, like I waffle back and forth myself sometimes, like if it's circles or, you know, and a lot of it has to do with the way the fish eats too. Like,
yes,
not all fish are the same, right? Not all fish are going to turn on a bait. In order for a circle hook to do its job appropriately, the fish needs to turn on the bait. If you're fishing for a whiting, a circle hook might not be the right tool because it's not going to turn and run with the bait. It's not what it's going to do. But if you're fishing for, I don't know, a bluefish, it's going to turn and run with the bait. It can't park. So the circle hook's a great tool. But a lot of people, and I hate to say it, but like fishing attracts certain thinking classes of individuals, and for different reasons, right? So it attracts intellectuals because it's a giant puzzle and you can look at it in 100 different ways and try and solve it in 100 different ways. But it also attracts Joe Schmo, and there's nothing wrong with Joe Schmo. It's just that Joe Schmo doesn't want to think too hard, right? And so what Grandpa told Joe Schmo to do, Joe Schmo does, and Joe Schmo catches fish. But that doesn't make Joe Schmo correct. It doesn't make him wrong. It just means that what's working for him is working for him. And that's something I've also said throughout the duration of the show, is that sometimes it's not wrong or right. That's just what works for that guy. And there's nothing wrong with that. But whether or not that will work for you and is replicable, that's a different story. You know, I come from a science background. It's got to be replicable or it doesn't work.
Yeah, you need repeat process, especially on this game. And I was going to say, whiting, I've never said it. This will be the first time I've said it out loud. Whiting, J hook. Yeah, I'm a J hook guy on a little piece of shrimp. Yeah, Justin got me on that. So I have changed my ways. If I'm fishing for whiting, straight J. I'll even go long shank. Why? Because it works.
Great, because you can get them unhooked faster too.
Yes.
That's another huge thing.
That's the other reason.
Fishing, the long shank J Aberdeen hook is literally like the goat for that stuff. You know, you learn that pan fishing as a kid. You catch more of them faster if you can shake them off the hook.
Yep. All right, last two questions in here, then we're going to get into the tackle shop. For seasons, have you noticed that there's any unique difference or tips when it comes to different seasons for fishing?
Yeah, man. Everything changes with the time of year. So there's four seasons of spring, winter, summer, fall. But in fishing, there's kind of two seasons. There's cold weather and warm weather. And one thing I'll notice, a lot of people spend a lot of time on water. You noticed earlier when we were talking about details and stuff, I didn't mention water temperature. It's like the moon to me. I don't think it matters. I think what matters more is where we are in relation to like daylight hours, right? So obviously the less sunlight means colder temperatures. Those two things go together, but it doesn't always. And so I think what's far more important, what we work with, not water temperature, is literally calendar day on the year. And we think last year, this day was the day before, right? So we account for the fact that 365 days isn't accurate. There's not actually that many days in a year, but we do use the calendar more than we use water temperatures. And a lot of people hinge on water temperatures, and time again, we go without looking at water temperatures based on the calendar, and we're successful. That being said, there's cold, especially in the Gulf, right? So right around now, probably next week, the first couple of big duskies will get caught in the Gulf. for the season, and then right around December, January, the first mako will get caught, and then right around January, February, the first white will get caught, and then the tigers are winding down now, and that's changed a lot in the last few years. And I think the same thing's happening here. A lot of stuff that we used to rely on consistently for certain weather windows and time of the year has moved and shifted, and I think it's just oscillation and climate change. There's a whole many, just infinite variables, but we've had to adjust a little bit. Certain things have remained really, really consistent, but other things have, and the trend over here has been less good, right? So the fishing's been less effective. It's more time required, more effort required per catch than it has been in the past. Some of that might be fishing pressure. There's more guys doing it, and some of it might be like used to be. If I went somewhere to fish, I knew I was the only guy fishing there, and I had been the only. If I hadn't hit it in a month, it hadn't been hit in a month. Now it's probably somebody fished it yesterday, and so there's that. But yeah, there's like 2 major seasons, and then the other thing to note with that is that if you're traveling, they're different everywhere. So like your peak season, for lots of numbers of fish and stuff in the Gulf is summertime. Peak season for lots of numbers and stuff in the Atlantic, it's wintertime. It shifts. The fish move. These are migratory animals. It's the ocean. Fish have tails. They move around. So like you catch more redfish in the warmer months in the bay, in Pensacola Bay, but they're out on the beach in the wintertime. You catch them on crabs on the beach in the middle of winter just randomly. And that's one of my favorite things to do while I'm sharking is to run a crab rod and catch drum and shit. That's like, that it's more fun to me. Lately, I've been moving more towards the lighter game stuff just because kind of jaded. But like that stuff's awesome. But those are things to note. Like, yeah, you go fishing, fish the bridge of Pensacola Bay in January, you're probably not going to find a drum. But you go do that on the beach, fish the same tactics that you fish for those fish on the beach, you'll find them. And so time of year is a huge thing. I don't spend a whole lot of time on water temperature, but time of year is a huge thing. It's just the way it is.
It's all good.
If you have to fish where they live, if they don't live there in that time of year, you can't catch them. Just gotta fish where they live. Gotta go to their house.
All right, last question in this kind of category. What are the top surf fishing mistakes to avoid, and how can anglers continuously improve their skills and knowledge in this exciting form of fishing?
Don't keep doing the same thing over and over again if it's not working. Literally, don't fish in the same place for 4 days if you haven't had a bite in 2. Don't continue to go to the same beach you've never had success at over and over and over again and hope one day it's going to be different. That beach probably just sucks, bro. I don't care if that's where your family's rented a house for 10 years. Fish just don't live there. Probably only have to go. You don't have to go far. Probably only have to go like 100 yards up the beach and make a difference. So don't keep doing the same thing. The other thing is check everything. Check your top shot. Change your top shot. So mono is so cheap that even if you make no money, even if you're like completely broke, you can be changing your mono with cheap mono all the time. That's something you have to be doing. Your mono top shot, mono goes bad. Sun eats, it's nylon. Sun eats it. Ocean eats it. It absorbs water. It goes bad. Change your line, man. It's a huge thing. Hook sharpness. Check your hook sharpness every fish, every cast, especially if you're fishing over hard bottom. Check that hook. And digging your skin isn't right. It should dig your fingernail. It needs to be sharp enough to dig your fingernail. And then the other thing is probably don't set the hook like you are in a bass tournament. That's another huge mistake I see all the time. It doesn't matter if you're using J hooks. You don't have to do that. Especially with modern super lines and short mono top shots. If you're fishing braid and you're setting the hook and you're swinging that rod 9 feet, you've pulled that hook 9 feet from that fish. That is not necessary. You're not trying to rip his jaw off. You're just trying to get that point. Let the hook sharpness do the job for you. Flick of the wrist. Sometimes not just a lift, like a steady lift. Like some of the kinetics of it and the explaining of it is hard to do, but it's not a largemouth. And even even largemouth bass fishing is probably not necessary. But like that's just, you're not in the Bassmaster Classic, so don't do that. That's like probably like as far as things the angler does like while fishing, that's huge. Most of the stuff is pre-fishing, right? Like picking where to fish, checking your stuff, check your eyelets a lot. That's the thing that people miss out on a lot. If something feels wrong when you're turning the handle, check it. And usually like these things give you indication something doesn't feel right. Half of the time when people think there's something wrong with the reel, it's actually a bad eyelet. I see it all the time. My reel feels rough is usually your line is rubbing on a broken eyelet or a cracked eyelet, because feel in the reel is 99.9% sound. It has nothing to do with the like mechanics of the reel. So if it's something feels wrong, something's wrong. Check it. And those are the things. A lot of it's just diligence. And you'll get away with it until you hook that fish you weren't going to get away with it with, and then that's the one you really care about. And so the advice I give a lot of guys when they're starting out in big game fishing, or even like medium, like lure fishing for the one, right? Fish for the fish you hope to catch, not the fish you're most likely to catch. If you're ready for the fish you want to catch, then you'll catch him when he comes. But if you're fishing for the fish you're most likely to catch, you'll always be under gun, and there's no excuse for that.
Those are great, man. Those are great tips. Well done. And yeah, I'm a big fan of, watching the vacation guy come down here, and you can tell who the bass fishermen are.
Yeah.
A little right leg step back, and
sturgeon guys do it too. Sorry, Jacob, but sturgeon guys do it too.
Oh. All right, we'll knock out this last bait check, and we'll get you into the fun one. We'll get you to talk about the tackle shop, because I'm really excited to learn about this stuff, because I know you got a lot of cool things in there. So let's get this one finished up. Yeah, it's funny doing the video thing. Like, I get to see myself bring in that fish, and I remember that day. That was a good day. I had a lot of fun that day. Fishing. All right, this is your third and final bait check. This bait check's being brought to you by DS Custom Tackle, the Delaware boys. They got you set up, man. You want to make rigs? Yeah. Floats? Got it. Beads? Done. Hooks? Sure, why not? Teasers? Yep. They got you covered. That'll take you all the way up in the Delaware area. That'll take care of you all over the place. If you're a rig maker and you're looking to get supplied, they can take care of you as well. Lots of good things in there. So dscustomtackle.com is the website. Head on over. Check it out. All right, so let's finally talk about Terra Firma. Let's finally get into the tackle shop here, man. And I knew who you were, not this year, last year. Yep, last year. So is that 2022? So I went to ICAST in 2022, and I'd heard of you. I'd heard of, and I can't remember who it was, but I was like, he's a shark guy. I don't want to go over there. I'm like, I'm scared of shark guys, because I'd only met Dylan, and I'd only had a couple of conversations, and I knew Dylan he's such a great dude. He just set the bar, and then I met some other shark guy in this local area who will remain nameless.
No, who you're talking
about. And after that, I was like, yep, no, I'm good. No more. So I'd heard about you, and I was like, and then it just kind of grew and grew, and people were like, hey, you should take a look at this. I'm like, dude, I don't know what to do with this. So let's start at the beginning here. Can you tell us a bit about your online and the tackle shop and the history, how it came about?
So really what came up was when I came back to California, I was working on my master's. And so I would spend whatever time I had out on the pier with the pier guys doing the slide baiting thing. And so I would bring some of that Hawaiian style, South African style slide bait stuff with me. And the guys out there would ask for it. And they'd be like, hey, can I buy some? And I'd be like, no, I'll just give you some. And eventually it got like enough people were asking. And I was like, fine, I'll sell some. So I sold some in person. It was like $5 for like a little kit in a pack. And we'd go out there and I'd fish for an afternoon. I'd make like $150 and like people just wanting stuff. And I was like, that's cool. Like, bought some fast food and some gas and keep doing this definitely, right? And then wound up like evolving, and we evolved in the way we fished, and the market evolved, and we just started expanding offerings. And then at first it was just rigs, and because that's what everybody does. Like, there's a lot of guys in this arena, smaller guys. I mean, we've bought like 3 of them, so there's less, but there were a lot of guys in the arena when we started, and they all do something a little different, and people have like brand loyalty and stuff. And so that was interesting. And then at the time, before I owned Shark Fishing Worldwide, it was owned by a friend of mine, Anthony, and he had a Facebook group. And so we got in there, and then we realized how big that market was. And we started pushing the shark stuff and started expanding the way we fish to market that stuff. And it just, everything we did worked, right? And people would start buying it, and it became popular. And then we would figure, we'd like get our hands on a product. Somebody would be like, you should try these things. And I'd look at it and be like, oh, it's nice and all, but like, it could be better if it was like this. And then we'd go into production and fix it, or like make it, design our own take on that thing that, in our opinion, and the way we fished was better. And it caught on a lot. And we ran with that, and it just kept growing. And then we started doing rods, because we saw that there was like, when people would ask what kind of rod they should buy for shark fishing, there's not really a good option. Like, everything that in that line class is designed for like offshore stuff, and it's just different. And so we were like, hey, like we can offer a rod. And we started fishing these rods, these prototype blanks that we liked, and people liked those. And so we started offering those. And then we were like, well, we could do like a slide baiting rod. And it just evolved into it. Now we have like a full lineup. We got you covered from freaking sea trout to 1,000-pound sharks. There's a rod in our lineup that'll do it for you. And some really specialty things in there that you just can't get otherwise, like out African style 15-foot 3-pieces and things. And then we expanded into freshwater last year because my interests went that way, because I've become jaded with the big game stuff and started playing with that and brought some like hair rig tactics to big game freshwater stuff, and that's took off. And now it's like 15% of the business, which doesn't seem like a lot, but so considering it didn't exist before, it's a lot.
Yeah.
The trick is finding new things and staying on top of it. And about once or twice a year, we do like a new product drop. We'll drop like 7 or 8 new like specialty things, and some of them take off right away, and some of them take a while to marinate, and people figure out what it's for, and they start doing it. And every now and then I'll sell something that I forgot I even sold, because we have such an extensive offering now that it's like literally like if you do any kind of bait fishing, only thing we don't offer right now is lures. Basically, if you do any kind of bait fishing, we've got something. Yep.
Yes, you do. That's the funny part where I was like, so when I started looking online, I'm like, holy crap, this is a one-stop. Huh,
Yeah.
This is dangerous. Like, and my wife, you know, she'll pop by and see what I'm doing. I'm doing like research for an episode, and she's like, what are you buying? And I'm like, nothing. She's like, like, I'm not. Like, I'm doing research. I got this episode coming up. She's like, well, I'll keep my eye on them. So yeah, you got a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, just about everything's on there. And stuff changes all the time. Like we're always, if we get feedback from somebody about something that's like, hey, I really wish these came in a different size, usually that's something we can do really quick. And or like, hey, this isn't working for me. Like a couple of years ago, we had a batch that we switched the guy who was making our non-return sliders, and we had a batch come back, and people were like, hey, they're like falling off the line. And I like got on the phone. I like immediately like FaceTimed the guy and was like, show me what's happening. And I like ran through. I was like, oh, that's what's happening. Changed the machine, got them fixed up, and out the door. So we try to be on it, and things change, and some products come and go and get modified, or we find a new thing, or we re-release stuff. We're on like the 3rd incarnation of our surf rods, just from, or like our light surf rods, just from like customer input, and realizing that like what worked for us. So we built a rod that we thought was the ultimate surf rod. We fished it for 3 years, and we released it, and then everybody broke them. And I was like, okay, so people aren't used to nice rods. Like this was the thing. And our market, so it was our mistake. We priced them at $160, which puts them in the range of like everybody. And those guys, $160 from Bass Pro Shops gets you like a fiberglass surf rod, and you can't break that. But if you take a $160 high modulus rod and you treat it like a $160 from Bass Pro Shops, you wind up with a 5-piece rod.
Quickly.
So we had to do some things. One of the primary things was we had to increase the price, but I didn't want to just increase the price or make it a better rod for that more money. So we went back to the drawing board, got back in touch with the factory, got the blanks redesigned. And then we were like, well, screw it. If we're redesigning it, let's make 3 new models and 3 new ratings. And so we're back off to the races now. And the 3rd generation, hopefully final generation, I doubt it, of this light tackle surf rod that we've been pushing for a while now. But yeah.
It's that whole stupid CPI, man. It's always processing. What's that work? This? All right, cool. We're changing this. It always is, but it's cool that you did it that way with 3 volumes. I mean, it makes sense.
And realistically, you don't need 3, but people think they do, right? So like, I fish the one. I've got 2 of the one, the light one, the original one. That's what I fish all the time, and it works for every. I mean, I can fish down from 1/8 up to 2, but I'm more careful, I guess. I don't know. People were trying to fish 3/4 ounces on a rod that's rated down to 1/8 and having issues. Okay, so we'll give them a rod that's rated to 3/4. You know, like we'll play that game. So
there's a reason there's a range, and you gotta kind of play the game there a little bit. It's almost like a warning label. I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah, that's what I told people. A guy was like, "Hey, I broke it. I was fishing 3/4 ounces." Like, well, 3/4 ounces is the top of the range, so I wouldn't be doing that every day. But okay.
Oh, that's so good and bad at the same time. Let's talk essential gears. So for someone new to surf fishing and shark fishing, what are the essential tackle gear items they should consider having in their arsenal?
All right, so if you're starting out in shark fishing, I'm going to take a page out of Dylan's playbook, and I'm going to say you should start out casting baits to sharks. You definitely shouldn't start running baits in a kayak, just because you're not ready to handle the animal. Like, it's not that you won't catch fish. It's not that you need special skills to catch fish. It's that the aftermath, the handling the critter part, that's really important. And getting used to handling smaller sharks that are squirrely will help you handle the big fish that are less squirrely. In general, bigger fish are easier to deal with, just in general, but they're bigger and intimidating and scary, and people freak out. So you get used to handling the little skitsy ones that will really mess you up because they're unpredictable and small and squirrely, and their body weight's light, so they can throw it around. And then you're ready when Mr. 12 hits the beach. You're not freaking out. You've been here before. You know what's up. You know, you're an old veteran. You're on the varsity team. You're not some JV loser. So that's important. Something in a 12-foot, 13-foot surf rod, we offer both of those. We offer one of the things that we do that a lot of other people, I wouldn't even call them businesses, in the arena do, is we offer a basics version of just about every rod or rig we offer, right? So we have our premium rigs that carry a premium price tag. They're not expensive. They're still like the cheapest available rig in that class on the market. But we also offer one that's like dirt cheap, like you can get 7 of them for $30 or something, you know. And we do the same thing with the rods, right? So we offer a basics 12-foot surf rod for Shark that I think I think it's like $220 out the door, which for a custom build, it's not truly custom, it's production custom. But for a hand-wrapped, American-made product out the door, it's nothing you can compare it to. So we offer those, and we offer a premium fancy one with marbling and all the colors and a custom rod, you know, and people like that, so they pay more for it. But we do the basics ones for everything. And so that's where you want to start. You want to start with something really basic, and then a decent surf spinner. I'm currently big on recommending the Okuma stuff. I'm not currently, but I've been big on it since Okuma and Tiburon partnered up and started offering actual products. That's huge for me. I'm actually in talks with them about something cool. So, but anyway, so we're
hint drop
something in there like moderate range spinning rods. And then another thing to remember about spinning reels is that any spinner that didn't cost you your car payment is disposable. So they're 1 season, 2 season reels. Treat them that way. You know, like they're graphite bodies, they're graphite rotors. They have pot metal gears. It's not going to last you forever. It doesn't make it a bad reel. It's a reel that they're trying to offer you at a price point that you can afford. So it's going to fail. If you want a reel that's going to last you forever, you're going to have to spend forever money on it. And that's just the way it is. You know, conventional reels, a cheap conventional reel can last you a long time. It's under a lot less engineering pressures. It's under a lot less strain. It's not having all the things that are wrong with spinners being wrong with it. So it's going to last longer. But when you're talking about spinning reels and your first spinning reel, buy something in the $120 range. If you need to really cheap out, go to Tsunami Shields. You can get an 8,000 size Tsunami Shield, I think, for like $89 right now. And that puts you well within the range of any black tip, small lemon, small bull you're going to catch on a casted rod. And so you could be out the door with line probably for $400 and be fishing. A couple of rigs, some line, reel, and a rod, and be on the beach fishing for sharks, which is, when you consider the step up from pompano fishing to that, it gives you access to such larger game. It's also your big drum rod. You know, it's a really cheap entry level thing to get into sharking, and you go catch 5 or 6 of those little black tips, and then just start thinking about getting a kayak and running some baits that way, and just gradually step into it. But I would never, ever, ever recommend jumping off the deep end. And it would make me more money if I did, but I would never, ever, ever recommend you buy 80 wide and a fancy number 4 unibutt rod and some 200-pound braid and go yak a bait and have never seen a shark before in real life. It's not the best plan.
No, and you're a good man for doing it that way.
I mean, I'll take your money, but the shark's going to take more.
Yeah. Oh, yes, very much so. And it's funny, like the big ones know when they get caught, they're like, all right, hurry up, get this thing out of my mouth and let me go. Like, seriously, dude, like, can we do this? All right, thank you, and leave me alone. So, yeah, I remember the first time I saw, actually, I think it was Blaine, Blake, they were out there. Dylan was doing an open mic night. Essentially, he had everybody out there, and it was actually where we recorded our episode on the beach. I was like, hey, I'm gonna bring my recording, let's talk. And then they caught, and I watched it was Blaine. I watched him swim this shark out. I'm like, no, what are you doing? He's like, dude, they're just giant puppies, man. He's just gonna take you for a walk, it's okay.
There's some exceptions, but for the most part, they're really mellow. Big ones.
Yeah, I'll take your guys' word for it. I'll applaud you and hold the camera because I love you guys. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. I'll touch it on the beach and we'll call it good. And that's about as far as I'm going. Well, damn, you nailed into that one. So I guess we'll move into, let's talk about some safety here. Surf fishing can sometimes, it's got challenges. Sharking, definitely. It's all got challenges related to. What are some safety tips you'd recommend to anglers, especially those new to the game?
First and foremost, know your limits, and not not like macho know your limit. Like really know what is too much for you. That's huge. Especially, I mean, even if you're a seasoned sharker, knowing when and when not to get in the damn kayak, that's a huge thing. Knowing where your limit is. And now I'm such a hypocrite because I'll send anything, but it always works. So I know where my limit is and I haven't met it yet. But if you do not push it, man. If you're not the greatest swimmer, don't get in the boat when it's 4 foot. If if it's really windy, you might be able to get a bait out, but then how do you get back? There's things you have to think about. Think about every angle and think that the ocean really is not a toy. It will kick your ass, man. I've dislocated my shoulder twice. I've got a chronic lower back hip thing going on lately. I had to miss Shark-A-Thon because of it. There's a reason the average sharker's career is pretty short.
That's sad.
Yeah. Tear you apart. And then I typically don't wear a life jacket in the kayak, and then I'm going to explain why. If you're swimming, you can duck under waves, and if you have the life jacket on, you cannot. And so waterboarding isn't a great feeling. And if you're bobbing around in significant surf conditions in the life jacket, you're basically getting waterboarded the whole time. It's going to affect your judgment. It's going to affect your ability to swim in. You're at the mercy of whoever's going to come rescue you. And typically, if it's bad sea state and you're in the kayak, the other guy really doesn't want to get in the kayak. He's not going to come save you. So the big thing is know how to swim, know your limits, and the paddle leash is your friend over the life jacket. So that's my safety feature. Is I use a really strong paddle leash, and I never let go of that paddle. Hold on to that paddle for dear life. You're next to the boat. The boat's your PFD. That boat is your life. I don't care how rough it is. You can ride that boat back in, even if you have to hold it like a kickboard and just barely make it. That paddle and that boat are your life. The life jacket, if it makes you feel safer, wear it. But I'm telling you, if the sea state's bad, it's going to be a liability. You can always get out of it. And the reason I say that, I've always said that. And then last year I had to save a guy at Shark-A-Thon that got tangled in his life jacket and could not get out of the water to save his life in the life jacket. We had to kayak to him from a camp. Like we were like 3 camps down. I jumped in the kayak and kayaked to him and got him in my boat and saved his life at Shark-A-Thon. So, and that was with the life jacket on. So, not saying it might work for you. Like just like everything in fishing, it might work for you. It might make you feel, it might be your safety blanket. It might make you feel more confident and more safe when you do it. But I'm telling you, in flat, calm seas, wear the life jacket. But in significant surf conditions where you think you need that jacket, it's not. It's a liability.
But know your limits. Keyword.
Yeah, you gotta know your limits, man. You gotta know your limits. And also know the limits of your gear, right? So not every kayak is ever going to be capable of doing every sea state. So if you've got the bargee boat that's good for flat days and you try and send it in big stuff, you're just going to get destroyed, man. You're going to hurt yourself. Not every flip is without consequences. You could get hit in the head with the kayak. You could get tangled in the leader. There's things. So like the goal is to not flip. With know your limits is know when to bail too, right? So if you know you're going down, get the hell out of the boat, man, because then you don't have to worry about the bait. You don't have to worry about getting tangled. If you get out and you're in control of your exit, there's less that can go wrong.
Damn good to point. Damn good. Let's talk about a little bit here into the education, and then we're going to talk about conservation. We nailed a little bit of that earlier, but do you have any educational resources, workshops, seminars, or anything that you offer or recommend people take a look at to help get their skills better?
The best thing you can do is even if you're not in Florida, is take the Florida Shark Smart course. Pay attention to the details, not just the minimums. Pay attention to what they say, not just the rules. Knowing the rules is important, but they have recommendations as well. So like the rules are this, but then above and beyond, there's recommendations and ethical practices, and they're included in that course. It's a really well put together course, and some of the people that help put it together are big names in the industry. The other thing I would recommend is reading some scientific papers on hammer post-release mortality and applying that to other sharks, because it's a thing with hammers, but it also applies to every species of chondrichthyes. Exhaustion and lactic acid are real things, and a huge part of ethical shark fishing is ethical release practices and fishing appropriate tackle. And I don't recommend giant 80 wides and 200-pound braid because it makes me more money, or because it makes you seem more macho, or because you're fishing for giant fish. It's because it's the right tool even for small fish, because you'll have them in faster and out faster. And that's that. And we all like catching fish, but we really don't like killing fish. None of us do. Not for no reason.
No, and I mean, that's the thing. Every shark person, anybody that's done sharking always says the same thing. Get it in quick, get it out quick. There's no need to play the game of wear them down like that. You're killing
the whole thing. People, for some reason, kind of universally, in like light game, medium game fishing and freshwater fishing, you're like, oh, I fought it for an hour. It was such an epic fight, light line. Even the IGFA has line class records, which to me is backwards for a conservation agency to have conservation program to encourage people catching big fish on 4-pound tests. That seems fucked up and backwards to me. Sorry, IGFA, but that's just the truth. It's time to modernize. That being said, that's the opposite in shark fishing. It's not, if you're talking about fighting a fish for an hour, that's a negative. It should not have happened. There's no reason, short of that story I told earlier, while we were on the wrong gear, we probably would have landed that fish if it hadn't taken an hour. It's less time for him to find the snag. You need to be fishing the most effective tool you can get. And yes, sometimes when we're out here on the peripheries, we're fishing for 14.5-foot tigers, 16-foot sleeper sharks, great whites to 16 feet. Yeah, that it's going to take a long time, even with the best gear. But you need to be giving that fish the respect it deserves by fishing the best gear you possibly can. And that's that. Rather than having 250 wides by 180 wide. And that's another reason to have one good rod on the beach, 2 good rods on the beach instead of 6.
I mean, you nailed into the conservation piece, because you've been talking about conservation the whole time we hear. I mean, in reality, so many pieces of this thing you've talked about it, and you talked about it in the articles. I mean, these species are here now, and we have to keep them going, or else we're not going to have them. These sharks aren't dumping out 1,000 sharks every time they give birth. We're not fortunate like that. Yes, some of the mid-game fish, I say it a lot whenever people start talking about big black drum. They're like, oh, I can keep one over slots. Like, well, you could, or you could leave it alone because it's a super breeder. It's got more eggs, so it's going to give us more fish. It's all about some down the line. And, I think a lot of people that aren't in this invested like we are, they're not in this, into that thought process. They're just, hey, I want to fish. Got it. Do you? But, it's on that same one. There's a couple fish you could probably let go. It's just there.
Yeah, one of the things with the shark thing is that we're in a match. So, like, one of the reasons we've been successful, one of the reasons Dylan's been successful, one of the reasons any of these modern shark players have become so successful is because we are in a special place where in the 90s, we passed a whole crapload of conservation-minded protections and laws that have enabled these fish to rebound to the point where we can catch them now, right? So every year we see more duskies, every year we see more whites, every year we see these protected fish and more frequently. And that's not saying that they shouldn't be protected. That's a conservation win, right? So they're being caught. It's still our responsibility to not undo it. Humans have this terrible short memory problem where they're like, oh, there's too many sharks, we should kill them again. And then we're right back where we were 20, 30 years ago. And then we just do it over and over and over again. And it's so weird to me that we can't, we have no idea how many sharks there are supposed to be. Shark fishing should be so easy. I shouldn't be on here. I should be a nobody on here talking, but it's become difficult in our recent modern history because we've extirpated them from their home range. Sharks don't infest waters; they live there, and they're living there again now for the first time ever. An example of that is the blue shark thing here. So one of my holy grails when I started this thing was I wanted to catch a blue shark from shore. For a whole lot of reasons, one of them being that it's on the IGFA Royal Slam thing, and I want to do that entirely from shore. And so I tried so much. Part of the reason I went to Maine so many times was to catch one. I've tried here over and over and over again. Suddenly, last year, we caught one, and 5 or 6 got caught on skiffs, and it's like, it's not an accident. We finally, the pressure's been down low enough for long enough that they're coming back. It doesn't mean go out and kill all the blue sharks you catch. That's not what, that's not what's happening. It's, hey, we were successful. We've had some resurgence of these species. That's a big deal. It's something to celebrate. It's something that I think a lot of the shark conservation pages are not getting, right? So we're having more encounters with sharks, not because there's more fishermen, but because there's more sharks, probably than there has been in any of our memories, any of our lifetimes. And that's huge. That's awesome. It's more opportunity for us fishermen. It's more opportunity for divers. It's a conservation success story. And I think a huge thing that's lost is that we shouldn't be complaining about shark fishermen catching more sharks. We should be celebrating the fact that there are more sharks for shark fishermen to catch and educating those shark fishermen on ways to keep that the trend, right? So, and it's just facts. It's just science fact. There are more of these fish than there have been in the past. Sometimes. Other ones, not so much. Mako sharks is a great example. There has been a significant downturn in Atlantic Mako stocks over the last 20 years since they've been doing the monitoring. And so in that case, we need some regulations. And when it's backed by science, I fully support it. When it's backed by emotion, you lose me. And that's what the white shark stuff is. It's backed by emotion.
You know, and the funny part about this, and I know somebody's doing this, whoever's listening to this that doesn't agree with that, they're like, no, that's not what this is. And it's like, dude, calm down. Take it back a couple notches here. It's like you said, it's science versus what do I feel? I mean, there's kind of a reason for stuff. And I had a great conversation with a couple of guys here. And one of the ones, well, I hate bringing this stupid topic up. And I know I'm dragging your time here, so I'll make it quick.
It's fine.
But COVID. Like so many beaches Florida, they got shut down for the longest time, and other ones got shut down. Fishing died for almost a year. And then the year after, when they opened everything back up, all of a sudden people were like, dude, this is the greatest fishing I've ever seen. It's like, well, might be a reason for that, guys. Just thinking here. I don't know, maybe. And then, we're in year, what are we at? 3? 2, we'll call it +2 from shutdown. And now people are like, man, the fishing's kind of rough. It's kind of hard. It's getting kind of sucky. Well, I mean, we were yanking in a whole lot there, and things have changed, and then weather and temperatures have changed, and things are getting a little different. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a regular guy with a podcast.
We were fishing for muskie in Kentucky, like during COVID. So like during COVID, one of the things we did was we took off, right? And we kind of like we took advantage of the fact that the universe was shut down. We were very safe. This was in the time when we still thought you could transmit it by touch and stuff. So we wore gloves, we wore masks, and we took off. We lived in a van. We isolated ourselves that way, right? So we moved, but we were isolated from society. We literally like checked out of society for 28 days. Well, we found ourselves in Kentucky fishing for muskie with this guide, and he wore a mask, we wore masks, everything. And we were out there fishing, and he was like, yeah, man, like every year it's a little different. The water comes up a little higher. The temperatures are different. The bites are different. It's almost like it's changing. And I was like, yeah. It's almost like the climate is changing.
What? Oh, no, you said the words.
And it was like he's like, no, it's not that. It's like, whatever. You said it, bro, not me.
Oh, man, I could do a whole episode on just that topic and just watch people get red and head spin. It's like, okay.
Like I said, whatever works for you works for you. I said that a lot. It's a huge thing. Like I said, it attracts two very distinct groups of people, and they go at it a lot.
Yeah. Yep. Yes, you and I could definitely. I love this conversation. So much more. All right, last one in this one, and then we'll get you out of here. We'll get you out of the closing questions. How can listeners find your tackle shop, access the products and service, and stay up to date on upcoming events and promotions you're doing?
So the big thing is to follow us on the social medias. The Terra Firma Tackle on Instagram, Terra Firma Tackle on Facebook. TerraFirmaTackle.com is the parent company. There's also Lane Leaders Fishing and Shark Fishing Worldwide, both of which are owned by us, subsidiaries of us. There's some more out there, but I don't publicize which ones are me and which ones aren't for other reasons. But there's some forums and some Facebook groups. Shark Fishing Worldwide, the group on Facebook, is kind of the rough and tumble version of our shark group. It's private. You have to be accepted in. I'm pretty lenient. If you fish, you can come in. But you also probably won't want to stay. It's really rough and tumble. We don't hold anything back. And if you're doing something wrong, we let you know right away. We're also not very drone friendly, so don't come in here with that bullshit. And then we also have LSF, which is the land-based shark fishing, and that is the public group. And we're way more forgiving in there, and I moderate that a lot harder. It is public, but you do have to be approved for your first post, mostly just because Facebook is overrun with spam bots from the Ganges these days, and I can't keep it clean unless I do that. So bear with me if you go to post a comment and it doesn't get approved for 2 weeks. I'm probably on the road somewhere. I'll get to it when I get back. I sit down, I drink a Monster, and I approve or deny thousands of comments and posts. So it's just the way it is. Both groups are huge. Shark Fishing Worldwide's at like 22K, I think, and the land-based shark fishing group is at like 12 or 14 or something like that. I might have those flipped. But yeah, you can get a lot of intel there, a lot of information. A lot of guys are really willing to help. If you're willing to stomach the Shark Fishing Worldwide, the most helpful guys are in there, but they're also going to be rough. It's a rough place. It's a private group. We even on the banners for the groups, we have ratings. One's R rated and one's G rating, just so you can tell them apart. But yeah, those are some great places to do that and see that. And then you can keep up with us and what we're doing on the Instagram. I try and keep the posts chronological. They're significantly delayed, but they are chronological. So if you're wondering where we are, what we're doing, I think currently right now we're posting Spain, and that was in July. So we're pretty far behind, but we eventually get it all up there. So.
Oh man. Well, you've done amazing here. I'm so thankful for this entire conversation. It has been phenomenal. As I'm looking at the closing questions here, I'm like, yep, we talked about that. Yep, he talked about that. Yep, he talked about that. So it's been, you narrowed them down to only a few. So that makes this pretty easy for you so you can get out of here, because I see the sun finally starting to try to get out of here. One of your personal thoughts here, what do you think has been such a surge, or a reason for such a surge to surf fishing?
COVID.
Good call.
Part of it, people went back to the outdoors. I know that when COVID happened, we braced for losing the business, right? We braced for being shut down, not having any business, people not going to work, people not spending money. And instead we grew 387% the year that COVID happened. We saw exponential, astronomical growth. And that was and to me right there, that's the data point I need to know why people are fishing more. They went back outside. They wanted to be outside, so they got back outside. They went back to the things that they took joy in before we became moviegoers and party bars and things. All that was closed. You went to the beach, man. And that made I think that had a huge thing. And then probably the second largest impact is social media, Facebook, Instagram. Unfortunately, it's a double-edged sword, right? So a lot of people just want to be famous, and so they want to post content that they think is cool and think makes them look good and clickbaity and all that nonsense, which is fine. I mean, I literally, some of those guys are my best friends, but there's that. And then there's also guys that just want to know and just go fishing, and the general Joe Schmo that just wants to take some information from social media and learn and fish. And both are great. Just different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, we both know a couple of those individuals. It's like, really, you're gonna drop that clickbait one? Oh, come on, man! Like, I mean, the middle of the video was good. Went to the beach today, and you won't believe what I caught. Fish.
Spillway monster.
All right, second to last question here. Is there any other fellow, shark teams or anglers, mentors, authors, and people that you haven't mentioned in here? They'd be like, yeah, hey, this one did some good stuff for me. Help me out.
Oh, I gotta shout out my Coastal Worldwide boys. 100%. Those are my word that I can't say on a podcast. And then I got a huge props to the guys at Tightline Braid, Jeff and Nikki. They've been a huge help. They've enabled me to do a lot of the stuff I've done, and they've been really receptive to product ideas and engagement that I've had with them. I've been working with them for a couple of years, and it's American-made product, and I can have impact on the line as it comes off the line and make a difference for you guys, and that's huge for me. And then as far as other creators go, other podcasts, you got David Graham with his Boundless Pursuit, and that has been it's something I enjoy listening to, and I don't have a lot of free time, so when I do get to find something I like to listen to, that's cool. I was on that show too, but so were so many other guys that are so much more qualified than me, and that's a great one. As far as like inspirations, most of your viewership probably won't remember, but there was a guy named Larry Dahlberg a good long time ago who did the original Traveling to Fish show, right? Before Zeb Hogan, before who's the River Monsters guy? Jeremy Wade. There was Larry Dahlberg. He was a dude, a cameraman of a Cessna, and he would go into the jungle and film incredible things. And that was the inspiration for when I was growing up. People asked me what I wanted to be for a living, and I said one of two things. I either said scientist or that. And then somehow along the way, that got confused into teaching. That was a giant detour. But now I get to do both of those things. I get to do science and fish, and I got lucky.
Hey, man, what was it? Enjoy a job you never work in a day in your life. So,
Or you
got
work
'em
every
both.
single day, 24 hours a day, and you never get to sleep.
That's the small business owner side. Yeah. that's the evil side of that thing that we never talk about in public. No, it's great. It's great. What day is it?
I remind people all the time that I hate my life. I say it all the time as I smile and go catch a cool thing.
Yes. So much yes. All right, last question. What's next for you?
We leave for Belgium in 2 weeks, so that'll be cool. Gonna go do some more sturgeon stuff over there. Probably the end of that for us for a while. We've really pounded. I was talking to my buddy that does that with me the other day, and I was like, we've really pounded the sturgeon over the last 2 years. It's probably time to take a break and steer away. So that'll be that, and then we go to a Pacific island that will remain unnamed until I decide whether or not I'm going to say where it is in December, and then January we're probably going to be out your way for our usual like once a year Florida Panhandle stab at a big mako with the boys.
Oh boy.
And, yeah, that's as far out as I've got. Really, March Guyana and some other stuff, but always there's and literally I try and like have a schedule app on my phone and I write everything down. Rarely does it work that way.
that's
something
life.
pops up. It's like a running joke. I'll be like, yeah, I don't have anything for 3 months, and then like next week I book something. It's just life. Life is evil.
Yep. Spencer, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. You've been a joy, a lot of fun, tons of knowledge. Great. Everything about this was phenomenal. Thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to be here, man. Happy to be here.
All right. Well, we will see you next time. And thanks for sticking around.
You got it.
All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you went. It was so good. I mean, so you got the website. All the stuff will be linked back on the podcast page. It will also be on findingdemosurfishing.com. You can find all the good stuff on there for Terra Firma and all the links through that. Lots of good things. And like I said through the show, there's a lot more than what we were talking about. So you really need to go take a look. You've been listening to Finding Demo Surf Fishing. Thanks for sticking around. I'll talk to you next time. I'm out.